Alright, so Marvel Rivals. We all know the game, let's be real. I know this channel is mainly talking about fighting games and whatnot, but Marvel Rivals has dropped and has graced us with its presence in the gaming world, and I'm sure most of y'all have given it a shot or at the very least heard of it. It is honestly an incredible game. I love the gameplay is great, it's really fun with friends, but gameplay aside and my personal thoughts aside, this game came out in a huge way. Like, it did extremely well, sold incredibly well. It is one of the most played games currently on Steam, on PlayStation, and on Xbox. Like, it is extremely successful. For a new game to come out and do numbers like these is just phenomenal. And it kind of got me thinking, will we ever see a fighting game reach these heights? Because I would love to see it. I love fighting games, and I would love for fighting games to be as successful as Marvel Rivals. But will that ever happen? Is it even possible? That's what I want to talk about for today's video, because funny enough, fighting games and Marvel Rivals have a lot of similarities, a lot of things in common. For example, much like fighting games, Marvel Rivals has matchups. There are characters in the game that hard counter other characters in the game. You try to play Psylocke into Loki, your ult is getting hard countered every time. If you play basically any tank in the game, you are gonna have a hard time against Wolverine. If you're a support main, chances are you do not like Iron Fist or Spider-Man or Captain America. If you're a flying hero like Iron Man or Storm, chances are you probably don't like Spider-Man or Iron Fist. If you're a melee hero like Magic or Wolverine, chances are you probably don't like flying heroes like Storm and Iron Man. It's very similar to matchups in fighting games where certain characters and certain character archetypes hard counter other characters in fighting games. Like if you're a zoner, you're probably gonna do well against a grappler, someone that has to get up close and in your face, and most of the damage they do is from throws, right? So if you zone them out and keep them away, they can't really do much. So you have sort of that similarity going on. There's also this beautiful thing that happens in fighting games that has been happening with this game Marvel Rivals that I've been so blessed to be a part of, and that is, you know, just discovering new tech, right? Figuring out the game. That is one of the coolest, one of the best parts about video games in general. Discovering new tech in a fighting game and being there for it when everybody figures it out is just, it's the coolest thing, man. It's literally the coolest thing. Week one, all the new tech that happens with a new fighting game, it's awesome. I love it. The early metas of fighting games is just, it's something so beautiful, man. It's really just so beautiful. And I feel like we take it for granted most of the time, because once the meta just grows and becomes more established, it's like, damn, I can't believe I was playing this low tier character, you know, whatever, back then. But yeah, no, it's just, it really is a beautiful time when metas aren't established just yet and everybody's just figuring out new things, and it's very chaotic, and you know, everybody's using every character, and it's just so cool. It's just so cool. And that's one of the really awesome things about Marvel Rivals is, you know, everybody's been discovering new things since the game's release, and it's just been great. Like I love hearing a character is ass on week one, and then week three, that character's broken, top tier, needs to be nerfed. You know, that was kind of the main thing with Wolverine, right? And then little did we realize he shreds tanks and he's actually just kind of busted. So I think that that's really cool. This game also, like fighting games, has combos. I'm sure you guys have probably seen the magic combo where she does her dash up into the slash and then the projectile, etc. You just do it really fast and it's a one shot, whatever. But yeah, there are some characters in Marvel Rivals that have combos. You know what else has combos? Fighting games. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities between fighting games and Marvel Rivals. So I think the potential is there for fighting games to be as big as this game has become, but I think we should talk about the differences, because that's going to be the main points as to why fighting games can't be as big as Marvel Rivals is at the moment. So I think the main difference that holds fighting games back from becoming, you know, really big, really successful like this game has become, is that Marvel Rivals is much more casual friendly. You can spend about 5 minutes in the practice range using any character and you can kind of get the gist of how to play them, right? You can pick up basically any character in this game within just a few minutes, because at the end of the day, it's still a hero shooter. It's a shooting game. So if you have good aim, you're set. You know what I mean? It's still a little bit different from other shooting games. You still need to learn other things, right? There's melee heroes, there's flying heroes, there's other factors that go into the game. So it's not like aim is the only thing you need and that's the only thing that will carry you or whatever. You still kind of need to know how other characters work, etc., which is another similarity of fighting games. But the difference is, yeah, if you want to learn how to do everything a character has in their kit, all you got to do is press one button, you know, and there you go. Boom. There's this ability, one button. There's this ability, another button. There you go. You kind of know how to do it. You can kind of learn how to do everything you need to do with that character in just a few minutes. And then bam, you're ready to hop into quick play or hop into ranked to use them. It's that simple, it's that accessible, it's that easy. With a fighting game, however, it is much more difficult, much less casual friendly, because you're going to be spending hours learning a character before you're comfortable enough to hop into ranked or casual match and, you know, feel decent enough to actually win with them. When you pick up a character and you want to learn, you know, how to use that character, it's not just a simple, oh, let me press this button, and then you have 4 different buttons and that's all you have to do for that character to use their kit entirely. No, there is a lot you have to learn. And to be honest, it's kind of hard to explain how much you will have to learn for each character because it depends on the fighting game we're actually talking about here. If we're talking about Street Fighter, you're gonna have to learn each character's buttons. You know, they're short, they're medium, they're heavy, for their kicks, their punches. You know, you're gonna have to learn fighting game lingo depending on the tutorials and the guides you're gonna be looking at. And then you're gonna have to learn the mechanics of the fighting game. So depending on Street Fighter, if you're playing Street Fighter 4, you're gonna have to learn the mechanic of focus attack. Street Fighter 5, you're gonna have to learn V triggers and V skills. Street Fighter 6, you're gonna have to learn the drive system, drive rush, you know, etc., etc. And that's just the game mechanics. We're not even talking about each character specifically. Once we get into that, you're going to be learning all their normal buttons and what they do, what type of space they're used to control, and when they are used to punish other characters' buttons. Then you're gonna learn the character's special moves and the input that you need to press and the corresponding button, because some special moves, there's 3 versions of them, a short, medium, heavy version, and you have to learn which one you need to use for certain situations. But sometimes they actually do different things. And then on top of that, the big thing is learning combos. You have to learn which combos work, which buttons go into which buttons, which moves string into the corresponding move, because Street Fighter combos, you can't just press any button and it will string into any other button. That is not how it works. Only certain buttons go into other certain buttons. And then it becomes, you know, what you're able to remember, what you're able to store in your brain of what goes into what. You also have to have the execution, the timing. And then, you know, when you find a combo that you're comfortable doing, you might want to learn a more optimal combo, because that combo maybe isn't enough to close out the kill, and that's kind of what you need. And those optimal combos are very long and not easy to do, especially for someone that has never played a fighting game. So then you spend all this time learning those combos, but it's not enough to just learn a combo, learn the character's moves, learn the character's buttons, what everything does. You still got to know what all the other characters do, so you know how to punish it, how to fight the characters, so you know about which matchups are good for the character you play. But on top of that, you have to practice your combos, because it's not like, oh, you do a combo that's extremely hard to do, you do it one time and that's good enough. No, if you don't practice, you are gonna lose that execution, my boys. So it's very hard. It is not easy to get into fighting games. And I think that's the main thing that holds it back from being, you know, something that's so big like Marvel Rivals is, you know, it's just not very accessible. It's just not, you know, it's not something that people look at and they're like, wow, I really wanna, you know, I'm gonna just hop into that game with friends. People don't think that way about fighting games. And that's really the downside. That's what really sucks, is I love fighting games so much, but I hate to say it, but it's just not something that I can you know, get all the boys together and be like, yo, let's hop on this game. Sometimes I'm able to, right? But at the end of the day, we're all still kind of fighting each other. And I think it's just really hard to have fun with a game like that when everybody's at a different level, you know, and it's not a matter of, oh, we can all just hop in a practice range real quick and you know, learn how to play our characters. No, it's something that really requires a lot of time and a lot of effort into getting good at a fighting game. And if you are better than your friends, it's not gonna be fun for them and it's not gonna be fun for you, you know? Whereas Marvel Rivals, it's something that everybody can just hop on, you know, and it's a 6v6 game. So you can squad up with the boys, you can aim and shoot, play your favorite hero and quick play, and bam, there's the fun. You know, there's the fun right there. But a fighting game, it's 1v1, you know, and as much as I love fighting the homies and, you know, boxing, it's like sometimes I think it is more fun when you get to play with your friends instead of against them all the time. I did make a video on this channel talking about how to make fighting games more fun. And if you guys want an in-depth explanation of what I think would be the best way to make fighting games more fun, definitely check that video out. But to summarize kind of some things in there, yeah, I think it's really important to have modes in fighting games that aren't just let me fight against my friends. You know, if you can incorporate a mode that lets you play with your friends to fight someone else, like a tag mode like Mortal Kombat 9 or like Subspace Emissary in Smash Brawl, you know, stuff like that, to where things aren't as serious, or at the very least you can play with someone rather than always against them. I think that's really big and really important for focusing on the fun of video games, right? Yeah, I think we're kind of in a era of video games where people do not like to take the blame for themselves if they lose. And trust me, I am not like saying that I'm not a part of that. Like I definitely, you know, also could be lumped in with that era, but I think it's just a time of gaming where, you know, people don't really like to say they're bad, or they don't like to blame the loss on themselves. They like to blame it on someone else, or, you know, take the blame with someone. And so fighting games also kind of aren't really appealing in that sense, because it's all you. If you lose, it's all you. You don't really have the option of blaming someone else, or, you know, taking the loss with the homies, because it's just you. You're the one that fucked up. You're the one that's not as good. And then, you know, you have the problem where it's like, okay, you lose in a fighting game, but you don't want to take the L, so you start blaming other things and you end up sounding like low tier god, you know, and then everyone looks at you kind of like, okay, this person is just a crybaby, whatever, and nobody wants to be seen as that, so they just don't play fighting games in general. But yeah, you got no teammates to blame when it comes to fighting games. It's just you. In Marvel Rivals, you can do 6v6, right? You can do custom. Like if we had 12 people, we could do a custom 6v6. But if we had 12 people in a fighting game, it's like we could run a lobby, and, you know, that would be cool. We could all be fighting each other, but there's not really like a designated, you know, way to have fun amongst everybody. And I think fighting games really need that right now. You know, there's also not really a way for everybody to kind of play at the same time. Like Street Fighter 6, the one thing I will say that I think is really, really cool is that they added a 5v5 mode. Well, it goes up to 5v5, but you can do 3v3s, I think 2v2s as well. So it basically makes it like Pokemon style, where, you know, you do a 1v1 and then you have teams of 5 on each, and everybody fights each other until it's like the most amount of wins happens on one of the teams, right? And I think that's really cool. Like, that's awesome that they added that, because they didn't have to add that, you know. That's super cool. Thank you, Capcom, for doing that. But I think it's still not the same as like Marvel Rivals, where everybody can play at the same time and we're all super engaged and we're all just having fun together. So, you know, I just really hope that in the future they incorporate like more things into fighting games where you're just able to have more fun, you know, more fun modes. Again, I made a video going more in depth into it, so if you guys want to linger on that topic and that discussion, definitely check out that video. But anyway, so how do we make fighting games more accessible for people if that's the main issue holding them back from being as successful as Rivals? You would think the answer would be to dumb it down, water them down, but that ain't it. Let me tell you. There's already been a discussion discussion amongst the fighting game community as of recent, where many players are starting to complain that fighting games are already too easy and too dumbed down for newcomers. And I'm starting to think that if they get more watered down than they are now, a lot of the fighting game players that, stick around after, the first week of the fighting game, and all the casuals buy it, they play it for a week, and then they kind of move on to other games. The fighting game players that actually keep playing it, usually to compete or, whatever, they're just really into fighting games. I feel like those players are gonna probably start to feel that their loyalty to these fighting games and the practice and dedication that they put into them isn't being rewarded enough, and they'll probably just end up leaving. Like, if fighting games start to come out and they're watering themselves down too much for newcomers to where being new to the game almost feels more rewarding than being a veteran of the game, I feel like a lot of those veterans of the fighting games are just gonna start to leave and be like, yeah, I don't want this. Like, this isn't the fighting game that I grew up loving or that I spent years and years practicing to get good at. So I'm out. Like, why am I gonna keep playing if you guys aren't catering to me anymore? You're only concerned about new fans and new people. So watering them down more than they already are, I think, again, it could be good for getting newcomers, maybe, but I think the old comers will leave, and the new ones that they get may not stay. So it might be a little too risky. And that's unfortunate because, I feel like Marvel Rivals doesn't really have this issue, right? Like, it's so easy. It's so accessible to just pick up and play because all you really need to know is how to shoot, right? And I feel like that's kind of why fighting games will never be as big as Marvel Rivals, is because the appeal of fighting games, of watching them and playing them, is, the effort and the mastery with your character and the time put in to pull off these amazing combos and in certain scenarios and situations. Like, that is the appeal from a spectator's standpoint. Watching Evo, watching Justin Wong pull off the most insane comebacks in Marvel vs. Capcom, it's some of the best entertainment, period. And I loved watching him because, I know I can't do that, right? So it's just kind of amazing to see someone so talented and so gifted at this game pull off just some of the most insane comebacks you could ever imagine. Whereas Rivals, I think, has more of a relative approach to watching it. Like, I watch Rivals content and I'm like, I know I could do that, It's chill, it's cool, and obviously there is still that aspect of, you play the character more, you're gonna be better with them, obviously, but Rivals is a team game, so it really, the aspect of, not every match is different, really comes down to like the team comp and who you're playing with, how they're playing on that day, etc., and who you're playing against, right? And I think it's just, they're just different games, really. They're different genres altogether when it comes to a spectator's standpoint. Now, the other suggestion that could be a potential solution to making fighting games as big as a game like Marvel Rivals would be a Marvel Rivals like fighting game. Maybe having like a team hero shooter, but instead of it being a hero shooter, it's a team hero fighting game. I guess I'm trying to think of it as like, instead of aiming and like shooting with certain characters, it's kind of like if every character in the game was like Iron Fist in Marvel Rivals, where you had to, kind of outplay your opponent. You have like a parry, and then maybe you have like auto combos or something like that. Maybe not auto combos, but just some certain moves you could do to combo into each other. But you can, like run around the map and stuff, and like, that's kind of how I'm trying to envision it. But there's no like guns where you can just shoot from super far away or whatever. It's more like you get in your face, and maybe I'm trying to think of like Rumbleverse. I think that was the game. That was kind of like a Fortnite battle royale, but then you had to like wrestle each other when you got up close. Could be something like that too. I guess the closest thing to that in the realm of fighting games would be like Smash, because I feel like, the reason why Rivals is so fun right now and why it kind of reminds me of Smash is in the sense of like, it's very chaotic, everyone gets to play. Every match feels different. And Smash has that whole party game aspect to it where it's very fun for casuals, but it can also be competitive, right? I think Rivals does that really well, and Smash Bros does that really well. And there's also the thing about Smash with like its stages and stuff. So everything feels different when you pick a different stage. Whereas in 2D fighting games, more traditional, Street Fighter 6, for example, like every stage is kind of the same. It's the same length. It's the same, you know, wall-to-wall aspect. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is completely fine, especially when you're trying to take games more competitive and more serious. You know, having stage not really be a factor is kind of a good thing, right? Especially because we had Street Fighter 5 where certain stages had to be banned because you couldn't see the feet or whatever, and you had Birdie who would like throw cans at the bottom and you couldn't see them in like the water, like with the beach stage. So, you know, this is not to talk down on Street Fighter 6 in any way, but it just kind of goes into, you know, being less fun and less chaotic, and it's good for competitive, you know, and balancing and showcasing skill, which is, you know, what traditional fighting games do, and they do well. It's bad for when you just want to have fun on a video game, you know? And I guess that's kind of also the main reason why fighting games are just held back and not able to really reach the heights of this game, Marvel Rivals, is because fighting games require more focus, you know? Like the type of moments that you have when you make an incredible big brain play for the team when you're playing in Marvel Rivals, and it's like, oh my God, guys, like I'm gonna make the best big brain play ever. You know, I'm gonna strange portal into a strange ult and just, you know, ult their whole team or whatever, you know, like all these moments where you can make these insane plays in this game. I feel like you have to make those plays every second in a round of a fighting game. Like you have to be on your toes. You have to be thinking with your brain at max capacity every single second you're playing a fighting game, to the point where it kind of just becomes less fun and it's more like actually just exhausting on your mental. Because like if you don't use your brain when you're playing a fighting game, you will face the consequences and you will not have fun. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think it's really hard to even play a fighting game casually because of how much you have to learn just to kind of get into the game, just to feel comfortable enough to play against people online, you know? And since that's kind of what gaming is now, like playing against other people online, you know, yeah, I mean, you kind of have to learn a lot just to go online with a fighting game, or else you're just gonna lose every single match, and that's just not fun. So yeah, those are kind of my main reasons of why I don't really think fighting games as they are now could ever reach the heights of a game like Marvel Rivals and its success. However, I would still very much like that to happen for fighting games in the future someday. And if you guys agree with me or disagree, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it as well. And while you're at it, you might as well subscribe. But yeah, I think that is going to be it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And hopefully I will catch y'all in the next one.